The new way to forego legacy whilst anchoring the Pope is to have a pet, right? Great, because I've got 2 of them. Perfect. We're right on track. Can't believe you made that comment, by the way. Oh my goodness. But can you even have a legacy without having children? Welcome to my channel. This is a Tuesday. We do deep dives into the environmental, social, ethical issues. This would be possibly what you define as a moral quandary.
So preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
A philosophical issue, I guess. A clashing of the generations, possibly, and existential dread. So welcome, this is my channel. We talk about stuff and I do my makeup at the same time. Everything I use is always listed down below. It's always cruelty-free, vegan, not owned by parent companies that test on animals, all that good stuff. But the topic at hand today is our declining birth rate making us want to have our legacy appear in like different ways, about passing on our wisdom in different ways. How is this changing the landscape? And is this actually just pure ego at play anyway? Are we currently struggling with the concept of like what the future will be like in 50 years, let alone 500 years, with the fact that we've got huge, powerful like people not doing the things that they should be doing? Is it even like worth worrying about legacy at this point? This has been rattling in my brain for a very long time. It's a little bit of a rant video. Honestly, with these videos, this is actually more of a discussion, so I will be really engaging with you in the comments because I'm very, very keen to hear your thoughts, because I have luckily an incredibly intelligent audience, so thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate it. Obviously, the topic at hand here is kind of dark, and there have been a number of tragedies happening almost daily around the world, so I want to be fully sensitive to that. So if you can't handle like thoughts of passing on, all that other stuff, all I'll say is please go watch something that's much lighter than this. I don't offer very much content in that way. Maybe go check out one of my December ones. Those are lighter, those are fluffier, those are nicer. If you want some content that feels like drinking a warm cup of tea, watch some Rachel Maxey. That will cheer you right up, okay? I honestly will not be offended. My last 2 videos were very big deep dives. One on Lime Crime, the other one on Amy Winehouse, so I need something that was like short and sweet. Possibly bittersweet in this case, obviously, as you can very much tell. And the tragic icon for February will be Pamela Anderson, as I've told you before. I will be putting up in my polls who you want me to cover after her as well. Like, obviously, I think that you know by now, my list for content that I'm trying to make is very long, but my patience is very short, so we should really get right on into it, shouldn't we? I'm not on about a Sisyphean tale here around the meaning of life, which is obviously 42, or please just go watch the Monty Python movie. Like, all I'm gonna say about all of this is just make sure that you've got your will sorted, and the people that really need to know what you want to happen when you pass. That's all I'll say, okay? Other than that, we should really get on to the big topic at hand. So to start off with, I really want to talk about the 4 C's. Not the Diamond Edition, the Legacy Edition. Having your name and achievements be known long after you're gone. Getting that huge scientific breakthrough. Discovering gravity. Making music from like 500 years ago that people still celebrate and think is a heckin' bop today. Being known as like one of the great thinkers like Aristotle or Plato. The notoriety of it all. Not in a bad way, of course. Only in good ways where people will sing your praises for years to come, because like you could be known like Christopher Columbus, but I don't really think that people remember him for being all that great. The legacy of having people pass down your name and work for generations to come. And of course thinking of you as a genius. Talk about reaching peak ego, which could also be argued for my next point. Content creation. It wouldn't be meta if I didn't bring this up, right? Has it ever struck you just how odd it is that we spend a majority of our time watching other people's home videos? Or do we just like not even see them that way because we count it all as content creation now, right? Whether it's on here or the kids on TikTok, that's basically what we're actually doing, is we're just watching other people's home movies. That is of course unless you're watching corporate stuff or what Mr. Beast creates, like where he just spends like millions of dollars on set. Broadcast yourself. At least that was a slogan if you are a fine vintage like me. But there is something that's like just a little bit morbid about it all, hey? So this is a thought that struck me about a decade ago when a dear colleague of mine passed away, but her Facebook was still very much there, like as a constant reminder of who she was. Since then, there have been many others, including content creators. Like, we know about celebrities passing. I mean, I even make videos on some of them too. But now you have actually got that experience for the everyday person. You've got regular people with the opportunity to create their own online memory. curated exclusively by them, sharing what is important to them, or like whatever wisdom they want to pass on. This isn't some memory that's shared by the people that knew them at a gathering. This is actually what they're creating themselves. It's live, right there, forever. It's like what they decided was important enough for them, like themselves, to actually pour so much of their time, effort, energy, soul into for like a couple, 100, 1,000,000 people to watch, listen, and experience. And of course this is normally from their own home too. I guess this also adds to why people feel so disheartened when they're not actually getting the views or the comments or the likes. Because of course like these days, like that's what you're actually worth, is like depending on numbers. I mean, like I definitely know from my own work the reason why I do what I do is because I want to be able to create opportunities for reflection, for people to be able to see other sides to things, like to have a different perspective or highlight something that I think that people should know about, you know, or share an experience of something that I'm not actually seeing content creators do, at least not in like my algorithm. But we all know how reliable that is, right? We can even bring this back to my beauty content. The reason I even started doing that was because I didn't actually see any beauty gurus like with my sort of skin concerns talking about stuff, because they all had like this perfect skin and I'm like, I don't have that. So that's why I even started making content, because I was like, well, surely there's other people like me that similarly struggle, so that's why I did it. Also because of the cruelty-free and vegan aspect too, of course. Children. The children are the future, or at least that's what we're told, right? But the future of what? Humanity continuing? And why? We've screwed everything up so much that people are fighting to actually keep it the way it was, even though it's actually like destroying the future for the children. So I don't even understand this whole weird conundrum we've got going on here. But the kids will solve it, right? That's a great inheritance present. Thanks. I'd much rather have the money. So based on politician and business decisions, I'm not really sure that that phrase rings so true these days. Not only that, but we've had children that are raised by parents that didn't want to be parents, who have subsequently gone to therapy and realized how much damage they've actually got. We've had children raised by parents or caregivers that have been toxic, abusive, or whatever other myriad of issues they can bestow on children. And so the kids have grown up, they've had time to reflect, they've thought about it, and they're like, no, the bloodline ends here. At least if you're me. It's like, no, not time for another season. No, we're done. We're done here. No, that's it. I don't personally think it's selfish at all to have the emotional maturity and have actually stood back and really properly assessed and thought about whether you genuinely want to have children and bring life into this world. And of course, potentially pass on those same issues to those children. I personally think that's a very emotionally mature decision to make if you are not one of those people that is like maternal, paternal, whatever you want to call it. Or quite simply, you cannot have them, whether that is for monetary reasons or the many other reasons, including health. Like, will your neighborhood be underwater in 50 years? I mean, like, the money issue is a very real thing since prices go up, but then wages have been stagnating for, I don't know, since the GFC and before then. Now, of course, I'm not here to discourage it. I actually think it's an incredibly hopeful thing if you have actually had children or want to have children. I'm like, good on you. I'm really glad for you. What I'm trying to say is, like, I fully understand why people don't. Try and extend like a bit of understanding for people that are trying to force people to have kids. I'm like, well, there are a lot of reasons why they can't. It shouldn't be an expectation anyway. All I'm trying to do is help people understand that the goal of kids being a legacy is kind of a screwed up thing to do. Like, it's actually a pretty cruel thing to put on people, especially today. Even then, why are children the legacy? Because they'll remember you? Because they'll pass on the bloodline? Ew. Like, that only really works in Hollywood, like Tara Mooney has shown, or business. Like, you gotta love that nepotism. And if you don't have those, it's like, well, what if the kid doesn't even want to go down the family business path? Sometimes that happens. Or, of course, potentially worse, if you expect children to be a carbon copy of you, or make you proud, or you even had a child that didn't want to conform to the gender, sexuality, or religion that you are. If that sort of stuff is actually on your mind about what a kid can do, maybe this whole legacy option shouldn't even be something that enters your head to begin with. People are their own person. Enough said on that matter, because I could go on for days.
What the hell is that?
You can't come to my channel without me talking about it, okay? I'm sorry. It's always going to happen. Personally, I think this is a little bit harder for the millennials and Gen Z, and of course the generation that comes after us, the alphas, who will of course eat us all. Because we've got the difficulty of knowing what the future actually holds for any children we may bring into this world. And it's not looking good. Like, Gen X had their kids before the big reveal, obviously very much generalizing here. Like, their children are the Zoomers, who are, quite rightly, having this existential crisis of the fact that the world is crumbling around them, and politicians and businesses are prioritizing profit over people, which is quite a disheartening thing to learn as you're entering adulthood. Not to mention you are living in a panoramic, one of many, I am sure. Zoological diseases. It's gonna be the next cool thing that's just constantly going around the world. Don't you worry. World tour coming soon. Maybe that's our legacy. We don't know how to handle a plague. But of course, if politicians did prioritize people over profits, how would they even get elected, right? The world changes a lot over 50 years. Like, think about how much it's changed since the 70s. Not only culturally, but then also in terms of technology. But then you also need to take into consideration like the average global temperature and weather pattern changes. Like, if my husband and I are worried about what the world will look like when we retire in like 30 to 40 years, imagine how the younger people are doing. Imagine how those alphas are going to be doing. In 30 to 40 years, the alphas that are being born today are meant to be living the prime of their life, much like what we are, but then we're stuck inside all the time. I fully get it. But you know, he's a civil engineer, so I get to know of all of the grim things that are going to be happening, and the planning that they're having to do, and the future ain't looking too bright. And this is for a country that's actually going to be like very lucky in comparison to many. But the thing is that they're having to count for worse than what the goal of 1.5 degrees is, because track record shows that we won't actually be able to hit that, so they're having to plan for a couple degrees higher. We know what happens then. So you may understand a little bit better why people aren't jumping on the having kids thing when you think about like what the future actually holds. And the notion of legacy is a little lost, because the current legacy that we're actually burdened with is that of an environment that is only getting more treacherous every year. I think it's also hard for people to think to the future, because it's kind of easier to live in like this little bit of denial and focus on this whole nostalgia thing that's had a real emphasis in particular over the last decade. I know that every generation can be a bit nostalgic, but I definitely think it has a bit of a peak with millennials, as I know you Gen Z often talk about. I fully get it. Or of course the other very ironic option is to fall into nihilism, where you just pretend to not care about anything and everything in life is meaningless, and cool. If that's how you get through, that's fine. But then it can also lead to people trying to destroy things even more. But I fully understand, because facing the reality of future is very hard. They're very sharp, these lashes are. I don't know if I like them. So I'm actually really keen to hear your thoughts on all of this though. I said that I didn't want to get all dark on you, but then I turned like all Greta on you. But hey, welcome to my mind. I could of course leave you with my fave like Maya Angelou quote, or some other wannabe profound sort of thing to like close it all off here, around New Year's resolutions and we should be fighting for a revolution and all that other stuff. But it's like, I'm pretty sure that you can come to your own conclusions here. This whole notion has been something that has been rattling around in my mind for ages, which is why I really wanted to be able to put it into words and on camera for you all. Sorry, like even my nightmares are philosophical like this. Like last night, my nightmare, because I have them all the time, was about like the world collapsing. Of course, a classic in my little dark brain. The fact that me and my husband, like, we found out that I wouldn't go on living, like, classic. I would be the first person to go in a horror movie, like, that's well established fact. And so we were having to like go through all of our stuff and prepare things to make sure that he would be able to carry on. Like, that's the kind of morbidity that is always on my brain. And I mean, like, plus I never actually thought I'd make it past 36 in all honesty. Like, I'm not there yet, and I've got no plan of fulfilling that sort of prophecy or whatever. But if you also have like this thing about not being able to see yourself when you're older, as I know that sometimes talk about this sort of stuff can bring up, that's actually a proper thing. That is actually called a sense of foreshortened future, where you can't actually see like hitting particular life goals or like living a long life or whatever. And if you also suffer from this, I really do implore you, please go to please go to a therapist, please talk to a licensed professional. I think that everyone should be going to therapy. I think that it should be far more accessible than it is, but I really do so highly recommend that, as well as like even just something that I've done which has helped me immensely, moving my body in whatever way of exercise that is that helps you, like 5 to 6 times a week, and then also finding something where I can get genuine joy from every single day, so I give myself something to look forward to every day. That helps a lot, especially when you're surrounded by doom and gloom and bad news. Like, if you're ever wondering how I put out so much content, it's because of all of these reasons. Because I'm still battling my own demons here very publicly. So I'm not like Alexander Hamilton running out of time, at least hopefully not. But yeah, I am trying to hopefully instill, like, whether it's hope or thought or something of like worth into the void out there. So after all of this, what are your views on legacy? And since we're talking about passing things on and like passing on and all that other stuff, because I can't mention the particular word otherwise YouTube will demonetize me. If you made it all the way to the end, please leave, because I probably scared you with this, I think it's quite right to leave the side-eye googly eyes and then also the ghost emoji. I just think very fitting for this. Like I said, other videos coming up will be a bit lighter, so don't worry. I know this one's been a little bit heavy, even though that a lot of my videos recently have been quite heavy. It's winter for the majority of my viewers, so I sort of figured you'd have some time. But don't worry, it's going to be a few shorter ones like this. Thank you lovers so much for watching. I hope that I'll be seeing you on Sunday with a review, and definitely next Tuesday with a Valentine's themed video. Definitely won't be regular Valentine's themed because I don't work like that. But anyway, I'll see you then.